This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, we have a brand new CEO and a brand new company. And I tell you what, I've been looking at this company for the last couple of months, and I thought we'd ask the CEO on and find out what's going on with the company. We're talking about AmbiCom Holdings. They trade on the OTCQB, ticker symbol ABHI. And with us today is the CEO of that company, Kevin Cornell. Kevin, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Everett. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, give my listeners a little bit about statement of who you guys are and what exactly you guys do over there.
Yeah, the product itself is kind of unique. What it does is it tunes computers. Now, the premise is that most computers are shipped with just standardized settings. That is, that the manufacturers set the settings at the lowest common denominator, because they want it to be able to run, so that the support calls are low, but that doesn't necessarily mean it runs well. So a recent study that was done by Dr. Kumi found that most computers, the yield that they're actually doing is around 10% of what they possibly could do. So what we do is we have a agent that sits on top of a computer, and it doesn't matter what kind of computer. It can be your personal computer, it can be a server in the biggest data center in the world. But what it does is it takes a look at the type of work that computer is doing and the assets that are available to it. And assets being what kind of network, CPU, memory, disk I/O, and then it takes the manufacturer's settings, and within the guidelines as set out by the manufacturer and as done with the manuals written by the manufacturer, it adjusts those settings so you can have a much smoother operation, a much higher yield in terms of performance, and just overall a better experience. So that we've developed that piece of software to do that automatically. Now, to be clear, you can do it yourself if you have all of the tools and have read all the books and you understand how the computer works. The biggest difference is where we get to that end result in 2 minutes. To do it manually, if you're fully tuned and everything else, it's going to take you about 2 days.
Wow.
So that's what we were offering to the computer industry.
Well, tell me about this product called Active Continuous Optimization for Computers. What is it and what does it do?
Yeah, so what it does is it takes a look at what you've got on a computer system. Is it Windows? Is it Unix? Is it Linux? And what kind of tasks are you doing? That is, are you doing small emails? Are you doing large number crunching? Are you connecting remotely to some site on the internet and some cloud operation? And then it says, okay, well, that's fine, but what kind of CPU do you have? If you've got a brand new CPU that's got all the bells and whistles, maybe you've got it tuned to run like an old CPU with that runs very cryptically. How fast is your disk drive? What is it, solid state? How big a network do you have? And do you have a network that's a dial-up? Do you have a 1 gig line? And then there's about 400 individual settings, each of which, each of those settings themselves is defined by the physics behind it and the way it's been implemented by the manufacturer. And so that's what we do. We look at what you're doing with the computer, how you're hooked up, who you're talking with, and then we go in and balance all those different areas. We don't do it so that the CPU is suddenly running really fast, but it's overburdened the network. We do it as a balance point. It's called a minimalist methodology, and it follows a physics mathematician's idea of how to do that. It's called the Lagrange optimization formula, and it balances everything out so that they're all working as a holistic way of doing things, and it really does improve the performance and the user experience very, very quickly, and quite frankly, very dramatically.
This product you have, Active Continuous Optimization, and don't take this the wrong way, why hasn't some other company like IBM, Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, why haven't they created this product and just a couple of guys from your firm knows how to do this and not the big guys? I'm lost on that.
That's a very, I had the same question from IBM. There's a Dr. Matthew over there had spent Well, they call it more of an active optimization, but for entire networks, and they spent about $2 billion over 5 years. And,
wow.
yeah, and then they gave up. They said it's too complex. And actually, in a previous company, I did the same with individuals that had a company called NetIQ that created System Center Ops Manager for Microsoft. So these are some of the best guys around, and we gave up. We said it's just too complex. So it comes back to the answer you're going to get is based on the question that you ask, and people were asking the wrong question. So if you take a look at the question they were asking is, and one we did as well in our previous company, when are you going to run into problems? When are you going to run out of resources? When is is your computer going to get to the point where it can't do the task at hand?
Right.
And let me know when that's going to happen. I'll fix that before we get to that point, right? So you're projecting on a basis of a number of different parameters, and those parameters you're hoping are static. And what that means is, as you project out, and it's Thursday, so maybe you're going to say, by Tuesday I think I'm going to have a problem, so Monday I'm going to fix it. And you've got this projection that's going out, and you're tracking all these different things, and you get overlaying mathematical formulas to it, and confidence ratios. Problem with computers is, especially in a virtualized world, the things aren't static. They're very dynamic.
I see.
And so what you're putting into your formula is data that is constantly changing. So by the time Tuesday comes around, you're dealing with a whole different set of data, and you have to restart the calculation. So you can't really project out into the future, and that's what everybody tried to do. They thought they could do it that way. Well, our question is, what's happening now? We don't care what happened in the past. We don't care what's happening in the future. We just care what's happening this moment. So we come from a background of building protocol analyzers or network analyzers. And what you do there is you plug in, you take a trace, and that's what's going on coming down the wire at that moment. And then you look at it, and lo and behold, it'll tell you what the problem is. And that's what a protocol analyzer does. We took that same concept and applied it to tuning computers. We plug in, and we run a trace. In other words, we take a look at what's going on, and we run a series of tests that tell us what type of is going on in the network, what's going on with the CPU, and all the different aspects of it. We then put that through our formula that uses the guidelines given to us by the companies. We put it through the formula, we make the changes, we log the changes, we make sure the changes took hold and worked, and then we move on to the next. And that takes 2 minutes. If something happens 2 minutes later, then there's monitoring tools that'll tell us that problems happen. We'll go back and do it again. But if not, we'll just go on a regular basis, maybe every day, every 2 days, every 3 days, however we set it up, to kind of check in and make sure everything's fine. So that was the question we asked. What's happening in the 2 minutes that we're there, and ignore everything else? Whereas the other people are trying to do mathematical future projections, and again, the parameters are constantly changing, so you never get there. That's why we were able to do it. And it's a less elegant approach, I must say, but it's a much more effective.
Active continuous optimization for computers. How big is this market?
Well, that's the beauty. It depends on how you look at it. We charge on average about $200 per year for a server. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, and I've had people challenge me on that. I remember the CTO at Deutsche Bank said to me once, $200 a server. My servers, cost me, $15,000-$20,000.
Right, thousands.
I've got right. Yeah. And then you think, and I'm going to say 30% improvement overall in my performance just by using your product. I mean, that's a huge savings. Why are you only charging me a couple $100? Well, you got 100,000 servers. The math works really well. So worldwide, there's some 160 million servers. You take that, this is just the server side. You take that times $200 per year, our market valuation is $32 billion. And that's recurring revenue. That's not, one and done. That's per year. So in recurring revenue. So 32 billion on the server side. And if we look at personal computers, the computers that we all use on a day-to-day basis, There's some 1.6 billion of those per year. We charge $30 per year for those. That's an additional market of $48 billion.
Wow.
So, in total, we're talking $80 billion market, and that's recurring revenue.
You guys have a patent on this product?
We do. We issued the patent. They issued patent back in 2010 when we first started out with it, and I was quite shocked that somebody hadn't patented just the ability to tune servers. But lo and behold.
So is this a provisional patent or a utility patent?
It's an issued patent. It's it's hardened, issued. It's in our pocket. It's owned. We actually had someone challenging to try and get the patent earlier in the year because of some situations that happened with the previous CEO, and we were able to gain complete utter control over it once again. So yeah, that patent is ours. And if someone else wants to go off and create a product that tunes servers and tunes computers and tunes networks, they can talk to us.
My guest today is AmbiCom Holdings. That's the company that we're highlighting today. They trade on the OTCQB, ticker symbol ABHI, and with us today is the CEO of that company, Kevin Cornell. Kevin, I'd be remiss if I didn't answer some of these emails that I'm getting. One is, people want to know, and I'm sure my listeners and also your stockholders, when are you going to start bringing your filings up to current? I know that you guys hired a new auditor, and when will the stop sign come off? If you could shed some light on that.
We're working on it right now. The goal is to get it done in the next couple of months. We've got the auditor engaged. We brought in an outside company that specializes in doing that as well, David Gray Associates. And, we're working as hard and as fast as we can to get that stop sign off and get us current with all our filings. So in the next month or two, you should see that stop sign come down.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on here. I hope that you will become a guest down the road and come back on the show in 50 or 60 days and give my listeners an update.
Oh, I'd love to. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the exposure and the discussion. Thank you.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.